But yeah, as I was saying, Discord, it's kind of replaced forums because back then forums they're indexed on the internet. You can look them up. So a troubleshooting issue or some tech issue that someone had 10, 15, however many years ago, you would be able to see all the answers and breakdowns and all that. For Discord, you have to be part of the server. So I can't just go on Google, type in, oh, I want to know what people are talking about on this Discord server, because they're not necessarily private. Some of them are, but you have to join them in order to see what all the text is and whatnot. So
Got it.
it's that same culture now exists on Discord, and it's like a social app. So people can build communities for just about anything there. Doesn't have to be gaming related. It could be knitting, painting. But there's a lot of art communities there as well.
Oh,
Apps,
nice.
apps and startups now, they create Discord servers so that people can beta test their services and whatnot. So you get like instant feedback from the people. So it's a really useful service like that. But like I said, because it's substituted forums in one
Yeah,
way or another, it's kind of taken away something from the internet.
that's really cool. I feel for art, it could be really helpful, especially, I mean, like you always are inspired by or admired by artists from like across the world. And I mean, social media or like there's just formal ways to connect with each other, either through email or like through the gram. But I think Discord could be a cool way to sort of have that informal connect and yeah, not formalize that whole process, sort of like be that icebreaker. Also to like show each other's work. So I don't know, like critique each other. Like it could be interesting to have that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's got a whole lot of uses. But before we go any further, yeah, thank you for everyone for joining us for yet another episode of the Outsider Supply artist interview series, and thank you. It's pronounced Viraj, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Viraj, for making the time to come on today. I realize time difference is a little bit tricky, but yeah, thank you for making the time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to have the chat and the conversation.
Fantastic. And so, just so we cover the space, so Mackenzie, CEO of Outsider Supply, she recommended that you be one of the guests that we interview, and she mentioned that you guys spent some time in Chicago College. What is the institution called again?
Oh, School of the Art Institute of Chicago.
School, right? That's right. You guys, so you guys were there together as colleagues. Um,
Yeah.
what was that experience like for you going to a school like that? Because Mackenzie has told me some of the stories that she had seen there. But for you, what do you remember of it?
Yeah. I mean, I was really young when I sort of joined. Obviously, it was undergrad. I was really young. And it was one of my first experiences of being in such a big city. I mean, I am from Mumbai and it's quite big. It's considered like the New York of India. But I feel it just in terms of like architecture, like the taller buildings, like infrastructure, it's humongous. Everything was monumental.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, it was like a really incredible experience of sort of getting to go there, being around like the best architecture artists. The facilities at AIC, like the Art Institute of Chicago, was just phenomenal. Like the museum, that was the main thing. Like the Art Institute of Chicago Museum, it's actually the second largest museum in the US and third largest in the world. And they have
Oh
an
wow.
incredible collection of all the main artists that I'd studied as a kid, mostly through books. So getting to view all of those paintings in person was, I don't know, a very special sort of an experience to sort of have that. I don't know, I feel like the whole time I was there, I was just like really thankful and not like this was a dream, but coming from India, like especially my family, I mean, they have been incredibly supportive, but there were instances where, again, like with chatting earlier, art is not the most common thing in India for people to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
So it is sort of a field where um, there's a lot of like people. I mean, families aren't like the most comfortable sending their kids to study art.
Of
So it's
course.
not a job. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't know, like getting across that, and then also like sending someone international. I don't think anyone in my family up to me like had studied internationally, so even in that sense it was like a big thing. So yeah, overall, I don't know, I mean, I loved SAIC. I learned so much, incredible people, incredible artists, very international. I made friends from all across the world, like Mackenzie, also doing like really diverse things. In India, when I started out, like in our school, we did have like art, but it was mostly restricted to painting because obviously it's like an easy medium. You can get paints, paper, and get going.
Hmm.
We didn't at that time. We didn't really even have printmaking or any sort of other mediums. Like even I would say sculpture was very basics to like crafty things. So my exposure to like other mediums was also incredibly less. So yeah, it was just like a really nice eye opener to like everything that you could do, and like art wasn't just restricted to painting and drawing. And I think that was really interesting. SAIC is very interdisciplinary. Luckily, we didn't have to declare our major, so you could really dabble around with a lot of different classes, mediums, and it was just a very open structure, and I think it worked in my favor. I was very curious about a lot of different mediums, so I studied animation, new media, graphic designing, but eventually I knew I loved painting, so that's something I sort of came back to in my last 2 years, and I was sort of actively doing it in my own time, any which ways. But printmaking was also something I really picked up because you need a proper print facility for a lot of the mediums like lithography and
Hmm.
etching within the print media. You need like an acid bath, you need like limestone, like all the chemical setup. So it's you need a professional setup, and you can't just like do it in your own studio space. So that's something I also dedicated a lot of sort of time and energy learning those skill sets and techniques. But yeah, I don't know, I have tons of stories from SAIC, from like my social scenes to I don't know, like experiencing the city to experiencing the school. Um, Also in terms of art making, up till then I'd only like mostly learned like very traditionally. So my growing up years, the way I learned art, or the way like most of us learned art, was just mimicking, like masters. So
Hmm.
I'd grown up like painting a lot of like whatever Picasso's, Degas, like Renoir, like all these different artists, sketching. I never like we were really never taught to um, sort of how to cultivate your original thought, or like even uh, like practicing of having a sketchbook that was introduced to me like in the undergrads, so I think like for my first year it took me like a year to break through that sort of habit of always referencing other people's work, because I
Hmm.
think that was like my go-to. If I was given any assignment or doing anything, I would always like Google like, oh, like what can be done in this idea, or what other artists have done. So I think it took me like a solid year to break that, but yeah, that was pretty nice. I mean, we had like incredible faculty. Most of them were all practicing artists, and they would invite us to their studios, like have shows. They would like have our shows in their studios and invite like, all their other friends who also like, again, other practicing artists in the city. So it was a really vibrant, encouraging, sort of an environment. Like, I don't know, the whole time I was there, I just like loved it. Um,
Yeah, no, that sounds about right from for at least from what Mackenzie told me. Did you feel because she also mentioned that once people actually got their own studio space, first year and beyond, a lot of people spent a lot of nights actually sleeping in these studios just because the pressure that you felt from being in that environment with as many vibrant people trying to vie for attention or trying to get noticed, or just trying to bring their vision to life. Just a lot of nights spent in the studio. Did you find yourself ever doing that as well? Did you ever find yourself feeling that this was like a very high pressure environment at times?
Yeah, I mean that was the norm. Like I feel that naturally, I'm quite nocturnal and I'm a night painter. So that was a very that's something that I went to school with. But of course, being there, also in terms of art school keeps you at your toes. I think it was incredibly busy for us because we had like every single day we had another class that we had to pick. So imagine 5 days a week, like twice. 2 days you have academic classes like an art history class, and then another sort of a different kind of an art history or essay writing course. And then you have three studios roughly. Like, I mean, of course, people would switch, and depending on the credits, they could like create their own schedules. But you had three, again, like studio classes at an average 2 or 3 in a week. And that would be separate classes, whether like it would be in painting, sculpture, whatever vertical you would choose in. So it used to be a lot of work completing. I mean, like our class hours were all day practically, like 9 to 5. And then a lot of us also had like jobs on campus. So basically, nights were the only time like you had to catch up on all the pending work, that you had to prep for class and even
Mm,
outside of it. I think the beauty about being at SAIC or any of these schools is you're not just like fulfilling assignments. It's really like meant to all the workloads like meant to guide you and like I don't know get those creative juices out of you. So I think I personally was very motivated just being there. I loved it, but also like you said, the other factors like you want to be doing things at the best of your ability or you want to learn things at the best of your ability. So I think that also like kept everyone at their toes, like, and yeah, it was just it was like, yeah, people like art schools get tough. Like, I mean, pulling all nighters just becomes like your second nature eventually. I don't think it's like, I think everyone does it in different departments. And yeah, but I also like those are like some of the most fun times I've had also with my friends. I think in like class hours and everything, like people are busy because you're like in a larger group and you have critiques and you're like following this structure. But after that, you're just like, I don't know, like painting, hanging out, like chilling, having conversations. So I feel those were also sort of like the best times, like with your friends or like with your artist friends, you could ask for, like just jamming like midnight and then going out for like some, I don't know, like 7-Eleven food or whatever is open. Yeah.
that actually that makes a lot of sense because art is not a discipline like it's not like math or even psychology or just about any degree. You know, like I can sit down and do a reading. I can sit down and do a worksheet
Yeah.
or work on a presentation at any moment. There's not really I don't have to create an atmosphere. I don't have to get into a mindset. I don't have to prepare my body in any way to really do that. I could just sit down and be like, okay, well, I got to do A, B, C, D, what have you, and then I could just run it through. But for art, um, at least from my understanding of dabbling in it a little, never certainly went to school for it or anything, but I realized that you have to be open to it, that the
Yeah.
inspiration it hits you at any moment. So that doesn't surprise me that you guys would have to then spend that time at night because, well, mom's not calling, professor's not bothering you, you know, with emails,
Yeah.
work's not calling you, everything is kind of, you know, dead air.
Yeah.
And especially if you're in an environment where other people are also in that situation, then you kind of have to force yourself to be um, willing to accept the creative spirit in that time.
Yeah, I think it taught us a lot of different things, like in the sense we did eventually, like, I mean, depending on the discipline you were in, like in the last couple of years, we did get our own sort of privatized studio spaces, depending on again the classes you picked. That could have been a possibility. But I would say most of the classes you always had to pack and unpack. And as a painter, that used to be really dreading. Imagine like coming in, like unpacking your whole thing, and then like in 6 hours you have to like unpack, pack, unpack, and then again you're coming back at night. Like I think that would really annoy me. Like that would really break the flow of like the creativity, like the thoughts. So very interestingly, in my last semester, in my thesis, I knew what my thesis show was gonna be like because I'd sort of very intuitively like I mean just visiting like other thesis shows and like they introduce you to the process much early on. So I don't know, maybe like in my year, like in my junior year, I started thinking about it. Like it's gonna be a mix of painting and printmaking and whatever, like the artists, like people I wanted to like collaborate with, or you can like apply together.
Hmm.
Like you could like have your individual wall, but like you could apply as a group show as well and get like a bigger space. So I had given it some thought, and like my last semester was really planned out. I actually took three classes in the same room. And luckily, it were the professors that I also wanted to take, but mainly because like I wouldn't have to unpack and pack. Like I
Hmm.
could just paint like continuously without a break, at least for like 4 days a week. And because I knew I was also going to paint large scale at that point, um, I hadn't fully like painted like a lot of large scale works. So that's also something like when you do start doing it as a first time as an artist, it's a whole process how you get used to the canvas and that space and yeah, it takes time, you know, like painting on a I don't know like a smaller canvas to going super large are
How
like
large are we
completely
talking?
different things. It was pretty big. Like my canvas was 85 or 86 by 180 inches. So it was a massive painting that I'd done. It was three panels, but it was like a one it was one painting.
Mm.
So I gave it like I mean I worked on it like the whole semester, like 6 months on it, and sort of also kind of got used to. That was like my first big artwork I ever did. And I mean I'd worked on paper at that scale a couple of times, but I think like painting on a canvas is another whole breed. So the works on paper were like more like drawing, but yeah. So I don't know. It was just like a very newer experience, and I was sort of like glad I did that at that stage because that again really opened up to a lot of newer possibilities for me, like especially like in my journey when I was in school. Again, it was such a because you're like in a particular system and like you don't realize it, but you're like sort of very used to what's happening in the system. So
Hmm.
until my school time, I don't think I had gotten larger than like a standard A4 or A3. Like 99% of my artwork were like that big. So maybe one or two works I'd started learning and like I'd gone bigger, but majoritively I hadn't even like crossed that size. And then in the undergrad, of course, we were like experimenting with like so many different things and I don't know, like unlearning, learning a lot of newer things. Also in terms of like paper, materiality, paint. So yeah, that changed that course, and then also sort of stepping up with I don't know, like going bigger. That was also like something quite nice. I feel it's. I think a lot of people, artists, don't talk about those things, but I think those are like all the tiny but like bigger things that I don't know, like shape your trajectory sort of as an artist and the kind of mediums you land up choosing and kind of honing and I don't know, that becomes like your material. So yeah.
I see. I see. And just to kind of bring it back a bit, I'm actually curious because you mentioned just how much of an obstacle it was to convince your family to not only not only go to art school, but then move overseas to do it. What is it that even drew you to that specific institution? Because I'm sure as you said, it's world class, but there's got to be a handful of them in the U.S. that are capable of doing this or pumping out
Yeah.
this quality of work. What is it that even drew you to this school specifically?
I actually had a couple of friends who went there, and we had all done like a summer camp in Mumbai. And I actually went to London for a year for my freshman year, and then I transferred in. But luckily, I mean, in London, it's like 1+3, you have to reapply. But in the US, it's like all 4 years. And then depending on the credit, you could take, I don't know, a semester or two more or less, depending on how fast you want to graduate. So when I was in London, I loved London as a city, and it was like again incredible. But I wasn't the biggest fan of the education system there, just in terms of they want you to pick a specific thing and like keep going deeper. And I felt like I was too young to do that and way too curious to not dabble and learn about other things, which I don't know. Normally, I thought I would in a university. So I remember having like conversations with a couple of my friends who were at SAIC and learning about the curriculum, and it just everything felt like what I wanted actually. So I made a call of going there, and there was a lot of drama and like how I landed up there with my family because I'd come back to India and they were like, okay, this is like a 17-year-old kid or whatever, 18-year-old kid who firstly like has no clue what he's doing. Secondly is like just come back and now wants to go to another country.
Mm-hmm.
So there was like a lot of back and forth, and of course like it was incredibly expensive, like all of
Mm-hmm.
these schools. But did land up getting a scholarship at SAIC, which was nice, which was helpful. Um, so yeah, I mean, eventually I did make it there, but I think having like the conversations with my friends again was of tremendous help, and because they were really able to give me like insights of because they'd already done like a couple of semesters the first year,
Mm-hmm.
so they gave me like really great insights of like everything, like not just like brochure information material of art schools and stats, but like what actually like how the classes are conducted, what's like the ratio with like the students and the faculty, like how are the studio classes, what you're learning, how are things structured. And also like I landed up seeing the work they did in the first year, which was very impressive. Because of course, like I mean, the way art schools work is they're a little more structured in the first couple of years, and then eventually like you have a full grip to you can like pick and choose and curate your own courses. But the whole goal is in the start they want you to be introduced you to as many mediums, techniques, so you're able to know what you love and like or what you would want to pursue and like what you don't want to do at all. So it's sort of like a nice sort of a pathway in that sense. Also in terms of I remember like they'd also like done coding, like in the first year itself, like they'd all build their own websites, and I don't know, they're kind of like learning the overall like tropes of, not just art making, but also how to code, how to put up your website, I don't know, like how to document your works. And everything just seemed really interesting. Like one of my friends did this insane performance, which I don't know, I was like really impressed by and kind of blown away because, like I said, like I mean, the arts exposure, the backgrounds like we came with was so limited to painting or like 2D works that I wasn't even imagining that art could be an extension to all of these things. So that's something that was like one of the points where I was like, okay, like this seems like a great fit. This is exactly like what I want myself to be exposed to. This is what I want to think about or like dive into. So yeah, that was like really helpful for me to make a decision. And then, of course, the museum is was another major factor. Like that's something I could like obviously like I didn't visit the university before going there. So a lot of my research was the information available online. But at that time, it was actually very limited. I would say today they have like the schools come down, they do all of these, like portfolio reviews. They bring down faculty, alumni. They have tons of like information out there, like first and for students to sort of make their decision. But I remember during my time, especially in India, not a lot of schools came down, and even if they came down, they like visited couple of, I don't know, the schools or like places they had contacts at, and that's it. Like you really had to rely completely on online information. And again, this is all pre social media era. This is like 2009 to 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Facebook had just come in, but none of the whole, like none of the social media existed, like no Snapchat, Instagram. So it was mainly just sort of the internet and like actually emailing the colleges, relying on them for the information and like the physical. They would send you the physical brochure of the college. So that's how, yeah, we found out, and like I mean, to the best of our abilities, we're able to maneuver through that. But now it's completely changing. I mean, I know it's like we're not talking about the art practice, but it's also like fascinating to see how much like the whole art infrastructure has changed, and I mean, of course, for the betterment. And we're actually like actively part of it, like me and like a bunch of other artists and designers, and like again, like alumni I know, we're all very active, especially with SAIC. We always participating. They always invite us for their like events, as alumni or as like portfolio, like for doing portfolio reviews, or yeah, any other stream they feel like there could be an interaction, with like the current perspectives or like just in general to activate the conversation.
I see. I see. And just to kind of shift gears a little, if you were to give young artists advice in terms of how to best go about convincing your parents to to make that leap, what would you say to them would be a good way of going about it? I know that every case is obviously,
Yeah,
individual to them and they got their own family dynamics, but if you were just to give some tips.
I think more than saying, I think like your work shows, I think you should have, I don't know, like try and be as active in whatever level you are in your school, like have, like participate in as many, I don't know, like art events, shows, like build up some sort of, engagement that sort of like proves that you are really interested. I think one of the things my dad did was, which was really nice on his part, was of course he doesn't come from the art world, had zero knowledge, had no clue like what it even means to get an art education, forget about pursuing or having a career in it. Was he took me to all the professionals in his network, which relatively were like related to the arts or had some sort of connection or might have some knowledge. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that sort of really helped convince my father, my family, and also sort of like smoothened out the process. And also, like, I think it was like, it even gave me sort of like an boost of encouragement that, okay, I'm like choosing the right path, even though internally this is what you love, this is what you want to do. But I think sometimes like it's not enough. I think there are like bigger factors at play, like what are you going to do in future, blah blah, all of those things, like the real world. So I don't know, like each one we went to, we also went to like a counselor, I got an aptitude test,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to like a couple of other people, like not a couple, like more than like few other people, and I think like each one came back with, in different ways, sort of like an assessment that, okay, I think like he seems to be a good fit in the creativity, and like all his sort of interests or like the way he's like been most active with has been around this field. So I think like it's safe to say like he should study it. So it was kind of like a very formal process, which I went through, and which I kind of liked it too. Like I'm glad like my dad or like whatever, my family just weren't relying on like things that they wanted me to do, but it was kind of nice to of them to include like advices from other people that they trust and who also had some sort of knowledge of the field, or like were part of the field. Um, so yeah, I think my advice to them would be, I don't know, like be honest to your practice. like cultivate an art practice. I think that's something, I mean, of course, like college helps you like really take that to another level. But even when you're young, like I remember I would like be constantly be painting all the time, in different scenarios, because that's something I just really enjoyed doing. So I think whatever, I mean, not just like fine arts, but like even musicians and like other creative fields. I feel, I don't know, like just like doing more than just the assignments given, like helps a long way, and like the whole process. Like, yeah.
I see. And I know what you mean when you mentioned earlier about getting input from people that are already in the program. Because when I was going about picking universities, that was one of the things that I unfortunately didn't have exposure to. Because I kept getting the sales pitch. I went to the university fairs, and I was told that,
Yeah.
oh, this is what the degree would be like. This is what the student experience is like. But at the end of
Yeah.
the day, they're trying to sell me on it. I know that they have a motivation that is
Yeah.
not necessarily aligned with what I'm looking for out of that experience, and especially if I'm going to be putting in thousands of dollars and putting myself in debt for this, I would like to know from somebody that's actually in it, what the
Yeah.
student life is actually like, what the course load is like, because professor is going to have a much different perspective than someone that's already been through the ringer.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to pivot here a little, in terms of the art style, because you mentioned you focused more so on painting and printmaking. Was that just like a process of elimination? You tried your hand at sculpting and all the other forms of art, and you were like, well, it just, as a feeling, it wasn't kind of like congruent with what you wanted to do, or you just found that you were able to excel more in these mediums.
Yeah, actually, both the things. I knew like painting was just always my thing. Like that's just something came very naturally to me, and I just loved doing it. And I was also like, I mean, every time I did it, there was like some sort of appreciation as well. So that's something I knew that I didn't have to fully learn in that sort of banal sense. Like it would always stay with me, but for the first couple of years, I would say I was like really dabbling into other things, and I'm actually glad I did for the round of elimination. But also, like I when I was doing graphic designing, I think I knew this is something that I liked certain aspects of designing, graphic designing. Like I love typography, I love layouts, and that I feel helped tremendously in my art practice today, which is again like a very like I mean having a design perspective and like a fine art perspective are two very different things. And like having learned design, I kind of like I like how I can like interchange and apply one to the other. So I'm very appreciative of it, but I think it really helped me with like I would say like the round of elimination. Like the things that I tried on, I knew that they could be like I could use them as a tool towards my fine art practice, but I knew that it's something like I don't want to do full time. Like even like animation, like I really liked making. I made like a few movies, and I really liked it. But I knew this, like I mean, I would use this um, in my practice, but like I'm not gonna be a full time animator. That's
Hmm.
something, or like even a graphic designer. Even though I've freelanced as a graphic designer, but it's something I knew that it's just I don't enjoy doing it full time. But I loved the whole learning process of it because I think it's like incredibly helpful with like your painting or your printmaking practice. Because I think at the base when you're learning these like different mediums, I know in colleges it's a division between all of these mediums, but once you're out in the world, it's all interchangeable. You know what I'm saying? It's not a class anymore. So yeah, your art could be a sculpture or your art could be in textile. And for me, I mean, it's been a decade. We graduated from school, and like couple last year, a couple of years back, I started considering and using textiles in my work. So, but that's something I learned it back in the school. I taken felting classes and like embroidery and all of those things, but never really did it at that time. But I feel it all comes back. So I'm kind of glad that I had touched base on all of those mediums and techniques and processes. And I feel as like you grow more conceptually and like, you evolve more as an artist, like it sort of like all comes back. So I think in that sense, it's yeah, sort of nice to have gone through all of that. I think most importantly, it's always nice to do something that you absolutely hate because
Hmm.
like when you like five things, it's difficult to pick what you like, which is like a very art school. Tons of artists struggle with that. Like they're like because they get themselves spread across. Like okay, I like all of these five things. Like what do I like most? Like it's really difficult to say. But then other than like okay, these are like five things, and I really hate doing these three things. Then you automatically know that okay, these two, and then you can pick one. So I think that was also like a nice way to eliminate a lot of things that it was good to get introduced to, but you knew that's not your jam.
I agree. Yeah, there's nothing like negative reinforcement to really let you know
Yeah,
what what directions you have to make. I mean, depending on your degree, sometimes you just have to swallow the bitter pill and go forward with it regardless.
yeah,
But yeah, if you do have the choice, yes, yeah, leaning into feelings of I don't know malaise or just when you're dragging your feet on assignments, that's a really good indicator that okay,
yeah,
maybe this is not for me. Maybe I gotta call it quits unless it's required.
yeah. There
But
were actually a lot of requirements. So writing was a lot of thing. I think SAIC's curriculum is we had a lot of what do you call like art history classes and
mhm.
like sociology. Like, it's we all minored in liberal arts, so which at that time I quite hated because I was like I just want to do studio, which I think most artists were probably also in the same boat. Like all of us just wanted to make. But looking back and also like towards the end, I'm so appreciative of all of those sort of the entire like liberal arts section. It's because I feel that's what shapes your practice, like making is one component and you have the skill set, but how to guide that skill set is sort of like the most important part, especially for artists of our generation. It's become so much more conceptual and so much more like thoughtful. And yeah, I feel artists in like I don't know 60s 50s 40s when you read about them or look at like how they were operating was so different from today's artists or even like
Yes.
how the art
Yeah.
world functions. And I feel even if you're a great artist today with like a great skill set, if you don't have a strong like conceptual framework around your work for yourself, I'm not even talking about the world, if you're not able to create that for yourself is where I see a lot of artists sort of struggle in how to go about things because the entire system is sort of like changed, and it's inclusive of that. And I feel if you've not upped your skill level to that, also I feel the role of artists has changed like drastically in today's times as compared to like I don't know, like reading about like I don't know Jackson Pollock, Picasso, like all of these guys, like when they were practicing. I think today we are equally, yeah, we are visual artists, but I think we're equally responsible for, I don't know, like putting the criticality of the artwork out there. You don't have to as an artist, but I think it's something, um, it's like something that goes without saying, but it's sort of like a unsaid requirement in that sense that people expect you to like fully be aware, like hyper aware of your practice, which I don't think it's a good or a bad thing, but I think it just helps like with how you approach things. And especially, I think we live in a world where we're quite lucky. We can like we're not single hyphenated, we can do multiple things in our generation. We're not boxed in doing one thing, so not just as an artist, but you could have other jobs. You could like do other things equally as professionally simultaneously. And I think that's a great thing. And I like, yeah,
I see. Yeah, yeah. To be honest, as a spectator, I'm not a fan of that direction of art that you have to have a paragraph explaining exactly what the inspiration was for this or what the mood was for this or um, trying to explain like every single brushstroke in a way.
yeah,
I though I understand the role that it could play, especially in art school. It's similar to how any other degree will ask you to show your work or explain your work.
yeah.
And so being able to talk endlessly about it would, I guess, in some way show that you have a level of thought behind it, that you understand conceptually what it means or what it could mean if it's interpreted in certain ways. But as a spectator, whenever I come across a piece like that, whenever I see a canvas or what have you, and then I just a 2 pages length of an artist's
Yeah, yeah,
explanation
yeah.
of it, it takes me out of it. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just biased against it, but I just to me if I see it, if it's visually striking enough, if I spend time looking at it, and I don't just simply walk past it, to me like that's enough for me. I don't need the thesis behind it. I don't need a long-winded explanation, because everybody interprets the work in their own way. But I just find that in some ways it takes away, I don't know, the mystery or I don't know, the je ne sais quoi from enjoying the art itself. It just yeah, I don't really have any positive feelings towards that kind of work towards
No,
art.
no,
But
I
hey,
feel
like I
you. I
said,
feel
I got a bias towards it. So
No, 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 I feel you. And like I'm with that. Like all the jargon doesn't help you as a spectator, or
hmm
while making it. But I was talking about particularly just like when you're shaping yourself as an artist, I think for your own self and your own vision and like how you want to hone your craft, I think in that pursuit, I think it's really helpful to like have that whole database of knowledge.
mm,
And in terms of everything, like art history, art criticality, because then you become more aware, you're more thoughtful, you're more conscious of the choices you're making. And I meant completely from that perspective, not the
hmm
outlet of it or how it's used, but as an artist, when like you're in your foundational years, because I mean, there are like so many self-taught artists, and like I don't think they're any less. They're incredible in their own right. But I feel most of the artists who take interest in this, who also self-taught, but like kind of teach themselves the history or like they get into the depths of their own what they're interested in. Like if they're in painting, the history of painting or like printmaking or the history of printmaking, you see how the world, I mean, the works elevate. And I'm strictly like sort of talking from that perspective of like artists like sort of evolving in his thought process, like what he wants his art to speak or say. But I mean, none of the jargon that's out there or like after that how it's utilized.
mm,
Of course, it's I mean people to people, but I think I mean for me I meant strictly from like institutional perspective when you go to an art school and how you're learning things. And I think it's nice that you get pushed, in like critiques. I think like one of the things like they make you that this knowledge is imbibed in the artist is through the crits, So, and I really sort of enjoyed having those conversations, because like I said, like my education was so basic that if you asked me to speak about art, I would talk about it at a very basic surface level, like, okay, I like this, or I like that, it reminds me of this, or it makes me, oh, visually, I can like reference it to these things that I see around me. But I think like the critiques really help you, I don't know, like just push your boundaries, and your own
hmm
thoughts and your own ideas. And like, I don't know, like it's really expansive, like if you think your ideas like, I don't know, like this small, I don't know, like through a critique and like listening to 20 people's thoughts, I don't know, it becomes like a whole expansive sort of a landscape. So in that sense, yeah.
Certainly, yeah, certainly. And just to pivot a little, in terms of your thesis work for your time in college, you mentioned you'd worked on it for months. Um, what was the exhibit? What was your aim with it, and what actually came up with it? Like, what was the experience like for you?
Yeah. So my undergrad, you want me to talk about my grad or undergrad? I'll talk about my undergrad since we're chatting about SAIC.
Sure.
So my thesis show was it was a two-person show which me and my friend had proposed. Uh, he worked in product. So he had a sculpture that he had showed, and then I had painting and prints that we had shown within the larger thesis show. We had a two-person show. Um, and our show was called Bullshit, like with an asterisk,
Mm-hmm.
because it was about my painting was sort of inspired from I had done like a backpack trip in Spain. And it was like again such a special trip. It was like I witnessed all like some of my most favorite artists' works, and also like I don't know, just it has so many incredible museums and like artist foundations. So like Picasso, Dali, Miro, all of these guys, I got to see a lot of good work and in like the monumental scale, which sort of influenced sort of my thesis painting. It was an abstract work, but also I had prints that I had like made through the 2 years from the sketches that I had mainly like a lot of the sketches I'd done in Spain. Like I went for this bullfighting game, which was really fucking weird. I didn't know they killed six bulls every game.
Oh, like
But
an
I was
actual, like
yeah,
legit
yeah,
bullfighting.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, legit bullfighting. Like, it was, yeah, I'm also a vegetarian and a Jain, so it was kind of like a shocking moment for me. But at that time, I was like really romanticizing. I was romanticizing with these painters and like the paintings they'd done. So I did want to witness the event. So I went for it, but then after two bowls, I had to leave. But I think like the larger goal was it brought me back to some things like when I was in Sevilla, I realized, like I mean, and when I was in Spain and like traveling in Barcelona, like the bigger towns to these smaller towns where the games originated and like old people still really enjoy it. It's like a deep part of their cultural heritage.
Mm,
I think like it brought up a lot of questions about like marginalized histories, but also like these cultural heritages, like which being problematic in today's age. And how do you go about those things? So I think I could really tie a parallel to things happening in India, because we have a lot of those issues too, where we've had a lot of like sort of cultural or religious customs which I guess like were fine back in the day, but I don't think they float around in today's day and age and time, in terms of like with people or like rituals. So I think that was a very interesting question for me in a broader sense. That, how are countries dabbling with these? Like, how do you sort of like could like work on conservation of like ideas, culture, but at the same time without erasure, sort of better these systems, and I think that became sort of like the crux of my thesis of the work at that point, which has still stayed with me. Of course, like every series, I'm trying to like explore something different from also like my daily experiences and like influences. But I am really influenced by um, like a lot of marginalized histories across the world. Again, might have been through different reasons. Like, of course, colonization was like a big one.
hmm
But how did they survive? If they eradicated, how do you sort of bring them back? And in what ways can you, like, I don't know, like highlight them or sort of make them like educative, or like how do you go about these questions and problems, and I think every country suffers from this or like goes through this, and I think that's like a really, I don't know, like um interesting question, but also a relevant issue like every sort of institution or like I don't know country is trying to answer. And even in US, like I mean, being there for so many years, and they of course have their own history with the Native Americans and like the Confederate. So every I don't know every country has like their own history, and how do you like move forward with that? I think that's like a very bigger like on a bigger crux. It's like a nice anchoring question that I like to address it in my works through different things, like through touching on mythology, being inspired by storytelling. Like I'm really inspired by a lot of like characters from these storytelling again, like mythological tales or like cultural tales.
Hmm.
So in different ways, through different materials, I like to sort of address these issues, questions, observations. So like each painting or print of mine, like I feel they're all different. I love the element of surprise. I hate repetition, however weird it may sound or it might um, reflect in my work. I feel I can't like produce images, like I don't produce images. Like I feel each painting or each print is sort of unique in that sense. Like I love the element of surprise even for me as an artist. Like I might have a vision for the work about I don't know anywhere from 40 to 60 to 80%, but I never have it fully planned out. And I'm like it's not that I have it planned out and then I'm just producing the image.
Hmm.
It's like my one like if I paint this section is like the next step would be informed from like what I painted before. So
Hmm.
I think that's what interests me in my process. That each step informs the previous and the next step. Um,
I see. And then
yeah.
the thesis show that you did with your colleague there. So it was essentially a series of works illustrating the themes that you just talked about.
Yeah, sort of on a broader level. And even his sculpture pieces, he'd actually hand woven jute, which is again like a very commonly available material in India, into this charpoy. Charpoy is like an Indian traditional sitting sofa, which a lot of like you'd find in a lot of rural areas, villages. That's what they use. So he had actually sewed a leather hide onto the whole. So he was also talking about on a reverse spectrum of like the same issue where India is considered like a spiritual and like this hub, but
Hmm.
we are also sort of like one of the largest exporters of beef and leather. So yeah, that's charpoy. So he was also in a way addressing the same issue from the other opposite end of the spectrum. Um,
Gotcha, gotcha. And from what
yeah.
Mackenzie told me in some of the thesis shows, some artists went through very unique pathways to kind of illustrate their points, whether it was through like the catering for the event or the music or the light or any of the aspects of design when it came to setting up the show. Did you guys do anything like that, or was it just turn on the lights, set up, hang up the paintings, and then let the people walk through?
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, so where the a thesis show, of course, like the whole graduating batch participates, and that was like the exhilarating thing that you have so many incredible artists working in practically every single medium, or inventing newer things, or collaborating, having it in one space. And it's definitely like a highlight in Chicago as well, like these thesis shows. And like Mackenzie rightly said, I mean, like you have a whole mega, imagine like an industrial sort of like a setup, and you have like 100 artists or like 200 or even more artists exhibiting works in all mediums. So, I mean, it's a lot of months of preparation, coordination with the curators. Like I said, it's not just randomly you go there, you get a wall, you get placed, assigned a wall. You can also propose your ideas, get a very specific place. build your own installation. So from animation to fashion to large scale installation to painting, of course, like the fine art, medium sculptures, wall installations to using, I don't know, all of these different materials that are not even like art conducive.
Hmm.
There's one of my friends, she's actually really incredible. She also has an incredible practice still in Chicago. She uses a lot of like nature-based materials, which are completely degradable. You know, she uses like branches, twigs, like snail shells, like all of these natural sort of elements, but like she makes incredible either sculpture installations or sort of like very design centric patterns on the floor, which are again like very sculptural and again like partly she has a performative element to her practice. Her name's Selva, and actually she's doing incredibly well. She's like showing at the museums at MCA, and like at this point, she was a master's student when we joined in, and I was an undergrad. But like I said, the beauty about the school was I don't know, the conversations were pretty free flowing, and through various like events on campus, exhibitions, there was a lot of scope of interaction, dialogue, meeting other artists, you know, from different countries, settings, classes. So yeah, it was a whole. I mean, for lack of a word, it was like a great carnival.
Gotcha, gotcha. And um, back to the idea of giving advice. From what you learned about doing your thesis show, are there what advice would you give to aspiring artists that are looking to have one of their own? Whether it's things that they should be encouraged to do versus like pitfalls to avoid, just based on your own experience.
I think planning ahead helps a lot. I started a year back just tentatively thinking about it and also like producing work have through having that mindset or like the working around those ideas. So towards the end, I had like a nice wide range of selection and really like I was able to curate my show tight in that sense. It wasn't that, oh, I made a painting for the show, but I had multiple things that I was like able to produce and then really narrow down. But also planning in terms of like your install, which is really important. Like if you want to do a group show, if you want to propose a solo exhibition, if you want to do an installation, all of those things, they're very open and conducive to whatever you want to create and build, even like space wise. So the more in advance you're able to plan, I feel the better you're able to, you know, like structure that. Also getting a lot of feedback from your faculties you're working with. I think they have tons of experience. I mean, not only through their practices, but also working within those spaces and also having seen so many exhibitions and how, you know, in the previous was how artists have used those spaces, but also like put up different kinds of shows or like done different installations, you know. So I think like brainstorming with your faculty is also like a really nice way that could help you a lot. And yeah, I don't know, like just giving some thought, you know, I think helps. Each artist is very different, I feel. I don't think there's one set route. Some people work better when they plan ahead. Some people are great at improvising and are very intuitive. So I think playing to your strength is the way to go. You know, I really don't think there's one right way to this. But I feel whatever pattern you've seen in yourself that you feel has been successful is like applying that same thing towards this.
I see. I see. Understood. Do you mind if we just take a quick 5 minute break here?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, we will be right back, guys. We are back. So yeah, so we just finished with the thesis show there, and then you said you also did one for your masters.
Yes. I went to RISD for my master's, which was yeah, it was very different from my undergrad, even though I had again like a I had a compilation of different large paintings, but I did kind of like a salon style going against, I don't know, like the very contemporary framework of how exhibitions happen today, because it's all about the white cube. And I kind
What do
of
you
did
mean?
like, I mean, the way we sort of like viewing paintings, it's a white cube setup for exhibitions and stuff. But I had like a salon style, like a number of works put together. But it was also more than a salon style. I looked at the whole piece as a they were different paintings, like with different narratives and characters. And I saw like the whole thing as a singular visual setup, if that makes sense. Um, so imagine I had like five large paintings put together to make big work. So
Okay, was I'm
yeah.
not familiar with either white cube or salon style. So if you could just explain those.
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah, of course. Sorry. So when you say white cube, it's a very classic, what all usually the galleries are and the museum institutions are. So within the artwork, that's like a very standardized sort of framework where like how to put up an exhibition. Like the most optimized way is to have it in a gallery space or like a museum setting, and like usually the whites are all the walls are all white
Mm,
in both of those institutions. So that's where like the whole concept of white cubes comes from. So that's like a very norm, sort of the norm to show the to show your exhibition, to show your works as. But I don't know, like I was trying to like break that, and salon style is from the European, from like the 17th and the 18th century. Like you have 100 paintings on the wall, you know, so that's a salon style. But like in the when you say a white cube setup, it's a very sophisticated, like one painting
mm-hmm.
with a lot of distance from another one, very clean. You can 100% immerse yourself in the works, no distractions. It's a great setup. It's probably the best way to consume art, but I feel it's kind of overdone at this point, and I don't think it's like the best setup for all kinds of artworks that are being produced. So yeah.
I see. And in terms of the theme for the show, was it similar to the one that you did for your undergrad there, or what?
Sort of on the same lens of like my line of query was um, the whole show was actually it was about creating my own modernity. So that's like what my thesis is, and what we chatted a little bit about. I'm coming up with a book, my first big publication, which I'm really excited about. Even being a visual artist, I started appreciating and like really liked the writing process. It took many years, but eventually I think it's just a discovery of another medium, you know, which I never thought I would, I don't know, like enjoy it. So it has a lot of critical writing. It has like poetry, a lot of like it's a photo book too. It has a lot of photographs, and it'll have images of artworks, but it revolves around art criticality through different ways. So I'm quite excited about that. But yeah, the book it has a lot of my thesis component, which is about creating your own modernity, and my interest in the decolonization of the Indian arts, but like Indian futurism, animism, fragmentation. How does digitization sort of affect the medium of the arts, but also the history, you know, like in today's age, because I use a lot of different materials like giclée and vinyl to sort of reference the plastic age we live in, and like the obsession we have with the screen and how we consume things and that flatness. And yeah.
I see. And so after your your work with the school, and once you had gotten your master's, where did you go from there?
I moved to New York after that, and again, which was a whole experience in itself. It was incredibly hard to find an apartment and a studio, and it took me like good 3 4 months, the whole of summer, hunting for that. But yeah, once I moved in and I got settled, it was really nice. I love New York. Just it's so energetic. I love the people. There's something about it in the air. Like when I started living there, I kind of realized why people consider it like sort of the greatest city in the world, in terms of everything. Like the people were incredible, tons of opportunity, the openness, like the approachability. Everyone is so approachable. I think it just had all the pieces of a puzzle to fit in. That's what I think makes New York great. It's like they have the infrastructure, they have the people, they have the resources, they have the finance. Like it has everything, whatever you need to make things happen, and that's why things happen a lot more quicker when things align. Like, of course, it can also be it is extremely like competitive and hard, and like everyone's always on a survival mode, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what makes it worthwhile. And there's sort of like this unshared, I don't think I've experienced in any city around the world how approachable the people are over there. You could like immediately, I don't know, like speak to someone who's right next to you and get into like a really deep conversation and like get things going. Like you don't have to introduce yourself. I don't know, you can skip all the process of like introductions and meeting for the first time and all of that. Like which I think like which was very new to me, but like kind of really exciting to, I don't know, experience that, the way a city can work, like how, and that's what makes it so, I don't know, incredibly like productive. I think like, I don't know, there's just something like about like New York's air, like everything feels like, I don't know, it's just like people's great energy is like part of the vibe. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because every day I would wake up and I would be like, okay, like I could, like, it felt like being in a movie, like, because I don't know who are, like, every day you could meet someone new, someone you didn't expect. Like, you never knew who you would come across. So, all possibilities were very open happening to you out there. So, yeah. Um, it was a short sting, but I'm glad like I was able to do that and also like achieve like being I exhibited in the city as well. I had a few exhibitions like which was great. So
And then eventually you said you had to leave just because New York was just far too expensive, which doesn't surprise me at all from all the like reels that I've seen of people doing apartment tours and whatnot. I mean, I live
yeah.
in Toronto, which is basically Canada's New York, and I mean it's hard enough here, but I've heard plenty of horror stories from New York.
New York's insane. I mean, I kind of had like I knew after graduation I might want to move there. So I'd actually started prepping and saving right through my grad school, and planning towards it. So I was like, at least I have that 1 year and I can make it count and covered. But I think majoritively also like my visa came to an end, so that was a big factor too. I feel if I had a longer visa, I could have stayed there longer, like continued staying there. But I think like the major factor was my visa came to an end, and I also sort of researched and I had I could have applied for another kind of a visa, the artist visa, but again it would have been a whole process, again expensive. So it's something, I mean, it was like a decision making point where I had to take a decision, like, do I want to do this? Do I want to, like, again, invest all of this time, energy, money? Because getting like an artist visa is, again, like a process in itself. You have to hire a really high grade professional lawyer, and it's like a whole, like, 800 to I don't know, it could be anywhere from 500 to like 1,000 page.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to set up like your like application. So it's just something I was like really fatigued with after grad school. I was like, I'm not gonna do another application. But also just naturally, I had other plans, like the way my work was headed towards in the direction. I think I would have benefited being back home, just in terms of like the access to like the materials I wanted to use, also space. Also, it had been a decade. I hadn't fully practiced here, so again, it felt like a good time to be back. Also, the politics in the US doesn't help. I was kind of glad before things started moving south. I left right before then, and then I felt. So I don't know. I think it's just worked out well for me. Like I'm happy with my decision. Also, I feel I don't consider myself being stuck in one place for like too long. So um, I can always go back if I want to. If any opportunity comes, I'll always be open to going back. So in every sense, but it was kind of nice to have that experience, and then like now I have my community there. I have friends, like people in the arts that I know. So it's kind of nice. I do. I mean, even though I'm not there, like I have in that sense, I am sort of like connected, yeah, through the community.
Gotcha, gotcha. And so, since your move back home, what can you tell me about the art scene in India? What's it like over there?
I've seen in India. It's pretty nice. It's really small, I would say. It's kind of like a niche, but I think it's one of the fastest growing art scenes and art markets in the world. I feel it's growing rapidly in terms of newer spaces, newer institutions. Like a lot of newer things are coming up for the first time, like residency programs, grants. It's very small, like I said, but I think like it's just like at an everyday basis, like it's just like rapidly growing. And from the 5 years, like which so pre-COVID, I'd spent a couple of years in Bombay, and I was practicing full time again and doing a lot of other things in the scene. I was active in running a collective where we would do a lot of like gallery walkthroughs. So I was doing a lot of walkthroughs. Personally, I was leading the walkthroughs, giving tours, and I don't know, making art more sort of accessible in different ways. Like I discussed, it's not fully part of our culture. Like we do consume art, but in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
and then through different sensibilities. But when you talk about like fine art, painting, like a 2D, it's sort of like the most uh, not the most accessible sort of concept that I don't know, like people are actively engaging with me on a daily basis. Also, we don't have that many museums, so people haven't grown up visiting galleries and museums in that instance. So the exposure level is very less. It's a huge, excuse me, it's a huge educative process in India, I feel. Even with my works, I feel if I'm practicing in the US, it's a very different. I can just be as an artist, but I feel when I'm in India, there is this onus of educator as well, because you constantly have to educate everyone around you about from the tiniest things to like the biggest things, from what the work is about to what medium you're using to what it's, I don't know, like referencing to where you're exhibiting, and like even to the extent of guiding them through the galleries and exhibition spaces. So I think that's a challenge. That's a big challenge for India. We need better art infrastructure, but it's like a simultaneous sword. Like I feel because we don't have the infrastructure, there is a scope of rapidly growing scene in that sense. But because we don't have the big scene, it sort of suffers. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like a two-edged sword. but I see it as like a positive. I think with my generation, I think it's still one of the most exciting times to be practicing because I mean, throughout the history, we have still, like in terms of infrastructure, we have like the most infrastructure set up for ourselves, you know. So I mean, I'm an optimist, so I try to think things positive. I try to take things positively in that sense.
Of course, of course. And just before my next question, Mackenzie just dropped a message in the chat. She says hello.
Hey, hi Mackenzie.
Perfect. But I just wanted to say one thing I've noticed, at least here in the art scene in Toronto, that um, art is one of those things that a culture or society is able to indulge in as soon as their other needs are met. When if you're looking for shelter, food, looking after your family, the priority isn't exactly on highfalutin things like art and philosophy. And so I've noticed, at least here, with the cost of living as it's increased, the attention that's paid to public works of art or giving space for artists has essentially
Go-
it
Gone
hasn't
down. Yeah.
yeah, it hasn't diminished all the way. Like there's still like we just had
Yeah,
a recent night showing where every year they have this festival where from 7 at night till 7 in the morning the city gives room for artists that are in some way, shape, or form tied to institutions the space to exhibit their work. So this could mean that a local gallery is going to be open till 4 a.m. This could mean that the local art museum is going to open its doors for everyone to just walk through and look it up. And there's just all these exhibits that going on through the city. But having gone last year and having skipped this year because of how bad the year before was, what I noticed was that the focus was more on trying to merge commercial interests with artistic ones, because then it would give an excuse for the commercial spaces to be like, oh well, yeah, we'll certainly open up the space, but
yeah,
it's got to be on our locale. We got to be able to advertise. We have to be able to set the terms. I've just noticed that's kind of become the emphasis, and as a result, it seems as though at least this particular art show, the quality of the work is not nearly as good as it was when I was growing up in the city.
yeah,
It was. I just remember being mesmerized by a lot more creative exploits of artists that I would never could have thought of or imagined. And now it seems a little bit more predictable, a little bit more contrite. It seems like you once again you need that paragraph to understand it. They've kind of just fallen back on those bad habits. Um,
yeah.
do you would you say that in India it's somewhat similar, that because it is a developed country, but when anyone sees it on the news or even just has a basic understanding of it, there's still issues regarding infrastructure or political corruption. Would you say that India is kind of in that same situation where the society overall in the nation is not developed enough for it to be able to give space to art as it should?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the point is very interesting. You know, I mean, Canada is still like a first world and a developed country. India, obviously, like we're a young nation in terms of we're like one of the old, we are the oldest civilization, but post independence, like it's just been 75 years, and there's like a lot of backlog from like, you know, we've been drained through the colonization. So, of course, that was like the big thing why the Indian art market is so small. It's because it was reserved for the most elite or who could afford it, right? Like the majority of the country was kind of coping up from the necessities and basics, right? Trying to cover
Mm,
their shelter, food, and clothes, like those three things. So, but I think in the past decade and two, I think India is like one of the fastest growing economy. People like, especially in my generation, I feel my parents' generations were the ones, you know, who really had to, I don't know, like have those crazy struggle stories. And of course, people still do have them
hmm
in different ways. But by and large, a lot of, because of our parents were able to set whatever, like the basics for us, we were able to go a little further ahead, you know.
Hmm.
from like the necessities. And I think in that sense, yes, very much India, we still lag behind a lot of things in terms of um, infrastructure and all of those things. But I think at the same time, we are also ready as a nation in terms of it is the fastest growing economy. We have like the largest population percentile is youth, like we have the labor force to get the work done. I think because of the internet and social media, the exposure, it doesn't matter what sort of level or strata of society you come from, you still have access, to like a lot of things at this point of time. So in that sense, like yes, all of those factors have been the reason why we've been a very small art market because of course like when you think about art, especially something like painting and fine arts, it's usually like an elitist thing and
Hmm.
reserved for like people who don't have to worry for the basics. But I think that it's changing, like even how art is viewed. I think now people see it more as like a cultural phenomena, more relatable to their daily lives, because a lot of the artists in India are bringing back, are referencing um, like techniques which we have been using. So it's highlighting a lot of like, anyways, like our own culture, our own cultural heritage, which again was marginalized, for the longest time. So I think there's this whole new wave of sort of bringing back and highlighting and um, I don't know, just like emphasizing and like focusing back on our own, from
Hmm.
like many years of, I don't know, like being colonized and I don't know, like using foreign products. So I think that's like a big, big, big plus. Also, I mean, my generation is obviously better read, better traveled from the previous generations. Like by and large, I'm assuming. So I think that also helps. And again, thirdly, like I said, like we are the fastest growing economy, one of the few countries in the world which is growing at a very rapid pace. So which I think also helps the cause, So I think there are a lot of like positive things happening in that sense. Like that's why art is able to like also grow. And I feel in the New York, of course, it's still like the beacon and like the whole like the capital of the world, but I noticed US has sort of peaked in that sense. I'm not saying it's like crashing or going down,
Hmm.
but I feel a lot of the galleries are shutting down, a lot of the fairs are sort of slowing down. Art has sort of like um, I would say it's peaked over there, like also like the kind of artists that are exhibiting, I think there's more excitement. And again, like even how US's demographics is changing, I think people are interested in the marginalized voices for all of these years, which they haven't heard. They want to hear, they want to relate back to I don't know, like cultural heritages of like their own countries or even like similar to ones that have had shared experiences. So I think in that sense, like the art world is also having this moment. I mean, like overall like of like these unheard voices coming up, doesn't matter which country you are in. I think every like different countries, different art scenes are like all having this sort of a new revival moment of I don't know, like a renaissance moment, which is quite exciting. And I think biennales, fairs are like a lot of these like institutional exhibitions are also like focusing on these artists, on these voices, which have not, I don't know, like historically have been sort of marginalized. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good to hear that that it is developing because one thing I've come to appreciate as I've gotten older is that um, art is not just something that is something nice to be looked at with a family trip on the weekend to the gallery.
Yeah.
Our art is representative of um, the culture and civilization where you come from. It shows an understanding of history, an understanding um, of the impact that an individual can have on a culture, and why
Yeah.
that is important. Um, and it's just, at least here in Canada, it's been a little bit disappointing for it to see it go the other way. That it's just been
Yeah.
hijacked by either corporatized
Commercial
or
interests. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
either commercial interests or people that have um, a very stringent ideological tint to it. Which I understand that it's you can't ask artists to not have some kind of leaning into their work or some kind of messaging into it. It's just that when the art becomes more about the message than the art itself, I find that the art
Yeah.
suffers when you try to shoehorn, whether it's themes or um, certain stories that you want to reflect. It I
Yeah.
think it really takes away from it. It's kind of like, I think Mackenzie said it best when she was talking about it, where self-insertion into an art piece, whether it's animation, a painting, what have you,
Yeah.
it has a certain role to play. But when
Yeah.
you self-insert to the point where the audience is no longer able to um, understand it from their own perspective or even take any kind of joy from it, then you've made the piece for yourself, as all artists do, obviously, but you've made it to the extent that it's no longer an experience that can be understood by other people or by like a large enough audience. And then that's when you get to the point where you're just standing in front of a work and you're thinking, okay, well, I should have some kind of an opinion on it, but there's something that I can't connect with it. And it's a shame to see that that's like where a lot of, at least the publicly exhibited works, that's what seems to be the goal for
Yeah.
some of these artists. But like yourself, I'm an optimist, so I think eventually it will turn around, because those I don't think those approaches are sustainable when it comes to
Yeah.
creative work in any way, shape, or form. And I think that that's certainly being reflected by people just turning away from it and being like, "Look, I don't want to see it. I don't want to be hit over the head with meaning or with
Yeah.
purpose from your perspective. I want to be able to imbibe my own meaning into it. I want to be able to experience or remember something from my own perspective."
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite critics, Clement Greenberg, wrote, like art is for art's sake. Like it
Hmm.
doesn't have to do anything more or less. And I truly believe that. Like art can serve like that purpose just being in itself.
Mm.
And like you don't have to, it doesn't have to like represent anything bigger or smaller. If it does, great. But if not, I think there's still so much beauty in itself. And yeah, I feel in today's time of like, I don't know, like you're mentioning, like I think you're talking about a lot of like jargon around art. You like overemphasizing on the concept than the actual like the product or whatever. Like it's a little off-putting, in general, in like a very when we talk in layman's term. Um, I totally agree to that. Like I feel, and I think in India that's where I think we're like at a very like a nice exciting crisp is like, because India I feel naturally has always also appreciated like skill sets, whether it's in like textile or like different mediums. So all of these things that are coming back are also touching base on a lot of these like skill sets, or like techniques which were lost, or people weren't actively doing it. So I think it's like you're touching base on both of it. You're getting like, I don't know, you're getting like these beautiful techniques that are like coming back, materials, but at the same time, um, it just naturally it's very like historically relevant, like it's not trying hard, it's just part of the ecosystem. So I think that's working well in the favor with artists practicing in this part of the world. Yeah.
I see. And just to pivot a little, um, what do you make of AI art as someone that has gone through the schooling, someone that has seen their fair share of different mediums and experienced them? What's your take on it?
So I see AI as a tool. I don't see necessarily it taking over. I feel it's like there's anytime there's like a revolutionary newer medium come in, there's always this conversation of, oh, painting is dead. But I think it's like, it's the same thing that had happened when photography came in, when print came in. Like there's always this sudden thing of like, okay, like what's the need to paint now? Like
Mm,
you have like a far better, greater substitution. But I don't think painting has ever been a substitution to anything. If anything, I think it just made the hand more valuable with AI. I mean, even with the internet before and digital art, but like with AI, even more. But secondly, I think I see it as a very interesting tool, like just how you use a chisel or like Photoshop or something else. Like, I think it's a great tool to um, sort of support and like, I don't know, like create things in. I don't see it as a replacement to any of these mediums. I personally, till now, and I think at this point, it is being used in a lot of different degrees, which only time will tell how the whole AI will shape up and like what it'll fortify to. But like from right now, as in it's being used as a very chat GPT assistant tool to creating sort of like some sort of visuals, images, in that sense, to, I don't know, like doing different, giving you different kind of like suggestions. But I particularly don't like using my images in AI at the moment. I very actively, consciously avoid throwing my paintings in them. It's because I know anything that you throw in, it becomes, you basically lose your visual sort of like autonomy, and maybe like I don't know what intrinsic sense, the IP to your work. Because
mm-hmm.
if you put a prompt and ask it to create an artwork, it's pulling, its source is, it becomes like this larger pool of artworks which are part of it. So it's pulling from, it's stealing basically from all these different collaging or whatever you want to term it, from all of these different images that are feeding into the system, and like then it creates a thing derivative of all of these images in its database. So I'm very actively against using like my paintings. I don't like putting them on AI, and I refuse to, even when I work collaborative with or like through different projects. I've had instances where I've had to ask people not to use my works in AI. Of course, it's something you can control as an artist only up to something, some
Mm-hmm.
parts of it. But I mean, anyone can get an image and upload it and do whatever. But personally, as an active, I mean, personally, as like my practice, I try and avoid it. Also, I just don't like getting clouded by the AI referencing, like when I'm creating a visual, like I said, like it's a process where my steps inform my sort of like the previous steps inform my like the following ones.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something like through the process, my imagery comes out, and not like I don't have a ready image that I'm painting off. So as an artist, it's also counterintuitive to my own process of making an image. um Against, yeah, I like arriving at images than like producing images, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, it certainly does. And speaking
Yeah.
of process, I know it's hard to answer this question in like a very universal or basic way. But what would you say your process is nowadays when it comes to a work? Because most artists that I speak with, it goes something along the lines of, at one moment or another, whether you're in a cafe or reading a book or doing anything, what have you, you just get struck with this idea, with some kind of inspiration, memory, something that you're working on, and so from there they just go into their medium, do what feels right, and as soon as they feel like they're done with their canvas 3D model, what have you, then they call it quits. That's it. That's the work, and that's what they want to display. That's very simplified way of obviously explaining it, but in terms of your
Yeah.
process, when it comes to creating your works these days, what is that like for you?
So, of course, I start with some ideas that I have, themes that I'm interested in, episodes or characters that I want to use in my paintings. I have a rough idea of like even the visuals, like through, again, like I said, like if there's a character that I'm really interested in or like a narrative. So I borrow motifs and iconography or like even art history. There are a lot of like painting schools that just because of colonization in India and across the world, have suffered and haven't really flourished. So that's something I'm really interested in reviving them. So I pull a lot of motifs and iconography from those. But I start out with like those aspects, and then I think like once the making starts, it like my one step leads to another. But I think it's a very sort of an organic process. I don't always like to sketch before. I actually don't even consider my sketching, or like I do watercolors, and I don't consider them as like my uh, preemptions to the paintings. Like I consider them like in their own right. So it's not always that I make sketches and watercolors and then I use that to make a painting. I think like a lot of times I've made the paintings first, and then it's followed up by smaller paintings and sketches and prints. So I use different strategies. I think sometimes it's also nice to let loose. I don't always, I think as an artist, you do tend to get trapped. Like you need to have your idea resolved of
Hmm.
what it means and what it says, and then you make it. But I think I try and sort of break that, because as much as it's about the idea, it's also usually about the process as well. And sometimes I just love like being 100% true to the process and the mediums that I'm using, and like enjoying them, and then arriving or deriving the meaning later. So I think for me, I approach both the ways, meaning and then making. But a lot of times the making happens first because I already have the creative juices flowing, and I have like, I don't know, my visual layouts or language set up. And then I think about, why I did this. Why does a skull and a flower and I don't know, like this figure all sit in the same plane, like from different times. Like, so I think it's both the ways. I like approaching it through both the ways.
I see. So it would be fair to say that your process is a lot more fluid. There's not really any like certain steps to it. It just depends piece by piece, theme by theme, depending on the subject of your work. That's you just
Yeah.
adapt to that. You don't really have like a guidebook or anything that you follow for that.
I mean, I usually tend to, every time I'm starting a body of work, it's like a larger body of work. So, I mean, maybe it'll be 10 to 20 pieces or whatever. So, I do have like a larger theme, but then there are also like these smaller themes or like details that I'm interested in, which, so in that sense, each piece becomes different and distinctive. And each one sort of, flows in its own way. I tend to start one piece or maybe a few pieces, and I'll have a very rough sort of a background or a sketch laid down, not a drawing per se, but like what I want that canvas to be. And then, but like I tend to work on individual canvases. Like I have to deep dive on one, I'll complete it 100%, and then I can like but I think that also has been my process. And I don't know, I've been reflecting a lot because I just got a bigger space now. And now I have the luxury of, setting up 10 canvases and like works on paper. But it's not always been that. So maybe I don't know if it was like because I was restricted with space. I always had space for like one artwork or a couple of artworks, and that
Hmm.
forced me to like fully just work on one thing. But now, since I have a bigger space, I'm kind of like changing my methods. Like I'm trying to work on multiple paintings at a time, like built like through different materials. So it's interesting, like how that's going. Like I know my method of locking down and working on individual piece, but then I think what I really like about working on multiple pieces is um, instead of loading one entire canvas with all your 100 ideas, I can really spread them out, and really like define one idea and allow it to just sit in like one space. And I think that has maybe it'll take my work in another angle, which only time will tell. And like I'm still exploring, I've just started, like I mentioned, my next big body of work. So I'm kind of, yeah, I'm kind of keen on how that shapes up.
Understood. Um, and speaking of which, so we're about roughly at the 2 hour time limit, and I know the time difference is getting a little bit late, and I don't want to keep you for too long.
Yeah.
So if we want to just end off here, what can you tell us about your, if you can share, about your current body of work and the kind of art that you're creating now?
Yeah, I think it's on the similar lines. Like I said, it's been a past decade of a lot of these bigger ideas that I've been interested in, or what we've been discussing, of marginalized cultures, colonization, working through themes, uh, without problematic themes, without erasure, but also like, I don't know, like experiences from my daily lives and social media. I think um, uh, my next body of work, what I'm really interested in is, like, of course, there are these like bigger legends, art history will always be part of it, but also like the whole turmoil of social media. Like, I mean, there's like my lived experiences, but there's also so many other lived experiences which it's kind of like incredible, through the memes, and like it's funny, it's kind of ridiculous, it's kind of bizarre. We're like experiencing and taking in all of these so many different things all at once as well. So I think in a way I want to see how to bring all of these different worlds in a single plane in my work, like what I find interesting, what I can find parallels with or not completely. They're like in the diagonals and opposites. But I think like these are the contrasting conversations or similarities, or like the bizarreness of social media is what I'm really interested in. Like, as much as we don't experience a lot of things, I think through social media, like you become part of it, Just like the culture of like sharing memes with your friends. Like, I think it's such an active part of, like, we send less social texts at this point, and it's like more communication happens through meme sharing. So
Hmm.
I think I'm like really interested in that aspect, but also how that ties up to the larger subculture, like highlighting, I don't know, like stereotypes in our society, or like through history and other things. So I think all of those things are really interesting to me in a very, um, like something at a very surface level to something that, again, can be like go really deep historically, like I don't know, like going through that whole thread. um Also through materiality, I think I'm introducing different things like textile into my work, like different like material surfaces like plastic, how all of those things also uh, combined together. I've been approaching a lot of these materials, and I've played around and used them singularly, but not always brought them together in one world too. So that's also, again, through the medium wise, and techniques. I'm kind of excited to explore that aspect of like bringing them all on one sort of single plane, and like what kind of like how will that shape up? How will that shape up my composition? How will that change my composition? Also, I think my work is always dabbled between representational and abstraction. So again, how like that pull and push that constantly happens with my work. It's again something that I'm looking forward to seeing how far I go deep into like both the trenches or how away I can get and really see, like how that again changes like my visual vocabulary of the works. So I don't know, these are some of the things that I'm like really looking forward to playing around with, resolving, investigating. Yeah.
Right on. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you create in your final body of work there. But yeah, that's as good a place to end it as any. So for anyone that wants to find your work, you're mostly in terms of socials just on Instagram, yeah.
Yeah, I have an Instagram that the handle goes by my name, and then I have a website, but I would say Instagram's much better and way updated. That's like a classic. Yeah, it's working. Some of the sections I still have to put in the photographs, and yeah, my website's always in under construction.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, well, we'll include links to the description, or rather in the description below, so you guys can go check his stuff out. And yeah, thank you, Viraj, for making the time. I understand with the time difference and everything, it's a little bit difficult, but I appreciate you making the time for this because yeah, Mackenzie recommended having you on, and after seeing your work, I knew that you were someone that has had enough experience that you could speak on a lot of these things and maybe even give some insights to aspiring artists on pitfalls to avoid or things to learn. And it's been great chatting with you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much, Mark, for inviting me to this. And it was really nice to chat with. I feel a lot of times we just don't casually chat. Like with most of the interviews, they're like hyper focused on the artworks and the ideas. But it's kind of nice to talk about the journey and the process and just stuff that, yeah, just regular things. So again, Mackenzie, thank you so much for thinking of me and I don't know, creating this wonderful platform for having all different kinds of artists and yeah, having different conversations and dialogues, bringing them in one portal.
Right on. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. So yeah, we'll put all the links in the description, and thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you later.
Awesome. Thanks.